Okay.
Emma, I think we might have Paul.
Or do you have something?
Yeah, kick us off here.
All right, go for it.
Good morning, everyone. This is past District Governor Paul Perez, and I want to welcome you to this week's District 5960 Friday feature. I see many familiar faces, but some new faces, so that's exciting to see. We're hoping that you continue to come and join us for our Friday features. And I'm going to turn it over to District Governor Ed Merrick to introduce our featured speaker this week. Ed?
Thanks, Paul, and I'm very excited about this. This is a piece of Rotary that's I'm very passionate about is youth exchange. And today we have Emma Mulhern, who is this past year's North Star Rotex president. She'll kind of explain what Rotex is about, I'm sure, and has previously served as North Star Rotex communications officer. She's been involved with Rotex ever since she returned from her junior year abroad as a Rotary Youth Exchange student in Finland in 2015-2016. This fall, she'll be a senior at the University of Minnesota, where she's majoring in international business and supply chain and operations management with a minor in Finnish. Emma, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm very looking forward to telling you all about Rotex and what it is. I've been doing this, I've given this presentation to I think 10 different clubs now, and it's been really great to inform people about who we are and what we do, and that's what we'll do today. So I just finished up my term as being Rotex president this year, and I want to introduce the new president, Sage Brinton. She unfortunately couldn't make it today because she wasn't feeling well, but Sage previously served as candidate officer, as rebound officer, and she went on exchange to Argentina in 2016-2017. And she's similar to me. She is studying supply chain and operations management and international business, and she's also studying public nonprofit management at the University of Minnesota. So she will be our lead person for Rotex this year, and I'm very looking forward to passing off the torch to her. All right, so we'll get started with our presentation today. What we'll talk about is, first we'll talk about Rotary Youth Exchange and what that program is, because you need to understand that to understand Rotex. Then we'll talk about North Star Rotex, who we are, what we do, look at Rotex in the bigger picture of Rotex International, and then focus on Rotex and Rotary and how Rotarians can support Rotex. And of course, I have some COVID-19 updates relating to youth exchange and Rotex for this upcoming year. So a little bit about North Star Rotary Youth Exchange. It is the youth exchange program for districts 5950 and 5960. It is a very well-respected youth exchange program, and it started in 1967. We typically send about 90 students overseas every year, about 50 to 60 of those on our long-term program, and the rest on our short-term programs. And these students go to over 30 countries around the world, anything from Argentina to Japan to Germany and so on. For the long-term program, applications are due in the fall of every year. So for any students interested in going for the 2021-2022 academic year, they need to apply this fall. So we have a few different programs. Our first and our biggest program is our long-term program. It is a year-long program, typically an academic year, and it's for students aged 15 to 19. So anything from going abroad for a sophomore year, junior year, senior year, or gap year in high school. And these students go overseas, they live with local host families, they attend a local high school, and really they're there to immerse themselves in a new culture, a new language, while also representing their home country and teaching their host family, their friends at school about where they're from and what their culture is and what that's like. Then we have our short-term programs, which are relatively new to North Star, but they're not necessarily new programs. So first we have our family to family exchange program, which is a 2-month program. One of those months is spent overseas. So a student is paired with a student overseas. We'll take an example of Taiwan here. So a student from Minnesota is paired with a student in Taiwan. This Minnesotan will go to Taiwan for a month and live with that student's family, experience the culture there, and then come back, and with their match from Taiwan, they will spend a month here in Minnesota teaching them about life here in Minnesota. And this is a summer experience abroad, and it's more meant for younger students, maybe wanting to try out the program, not sure if they want to do the long-term program, or for students that the long-term program just isn't feasible for some reason or another. And then we have international camps, which are 1 to 3 week long programs, different themes. So it could be a nature camp in Finland, it could be biking in Taiwan as one of them, for example. And it's really just an intercultural experience and learning about not only the people that you're with and the cultures that they're from, but also the culture of the country that you are staying in. So these are 2 short-term summer programs. And I also want to cover some important terms because you need to understand these to understand my presentation. So we're going to take an example here with a student from Minnesota going on exchange to Finland for a year. The student applies, and now they're preparing to go on exchange. They're going to orientations, they're learning as much about Finland as they can, and this student is considered a candidate student. Once they get on that plane, go overseas to Finland, from our perspective, they have gone out on exchange to Finland. But from Finland into Finland to spend the exchange year. Any students that come in from around the world to the North Star area, we consider them inbound students. Then this student comes back from exchange after completing their year abroad, and now they are considered a rebound student, which, as you can guess, they have now returned from their exchange year, so they are considered a rebound student. Then we have sponsor and host club. So a sponsor club is the American club that is sponsoring the outbound student. Then we have host club, which would be the Finnish club, hosting the student in the country, taking care of their needs there. Within the host club, we have the YEO, which is the youth exchange officer, and they're really in charge of more of the logistical things, making sure the student is enrolled in school, has host families, and so forth. And all students also have a counselor, which is someone really there to help them with more the emotional support and adjusting to their new life. As was mentioned earlier, I spent my junior year abroad in Finland, and I wanted to go to Finland. Well, first I wanted to go on exchange because both of my parents had been Rotary Youth Exchange students, and my older brother and 2 of my aunts. So you could say it's kind of a family tradition, but I wanted to go to Finland because I wanted to play hockey, and I did. The picture in the lower right there is of my hockey team. We actually had a St. Paul Rotarians send us Minnesota Wild shirts with names of Finnish players on the back, and my team was very excited. But it was a very different experience for me. I was in a small rural farm, 1,000 people, and I'm from St. Paul. So going from a school of 1,300 to a school of 130 was a very different experience, but I really enjoyed learning about the Finnish culture, learning the Finnish language, and sharing the American culture with them at the same time. And really, I'd say it was a very transformative experience, learning really a lot about myself in the process of learning really more about the world. So now I come back from my exchange year, and now what? I mean, do I just go back to the way things were? I don't think that's possible. I mean, I've changed so much as a person, so what am I supposed to do now? And that's really where Rotex comes into the picture of things. So, oops, there we go. Who are North Star Rotex? Well, North Star Rotex are former long-term Rotary Youth Exchange Program participants. They are anything from high school age to college age students. And how students become a Rotex is they attend a North Star overnight event, or 1 year after returning from their exchange year, they're automatically considered a Rotex. And here's a nice picture we took last year of some Rotex with our youth exchange blazers. So what is North Star Rotex? Well, North Star Rotex is really, so it has sort of 2 main pillars. So one, of course, it is a service organization, just like the rest of Rotary. But secondly, and really most importantly, is that it's a community of people with a shared experience and really a similar mindset. So first, I want to talk about how we are a service organization. We do a lot of different service throughout the year. First, I want to focus our service with inbounds. So these, again, are the students that have come into the North Star area to spend the year. In September of every year, after really the students have only been here a few weeks, we have our inbound orientation, where students get to learn, of course, and talk about the rules and what life will be like here, but also teaching them about culture shock and things they should expect during their exchange year. And Rotex are really critical at this orientation because, of course, we help to run different sessions to help prepare these students for their year, but also we can serve as cultural and the literal translators, because not all of these students speak the language, speak English that well when they get here. So we're able to talk with them, check in with them, see how they're doing, and help them also understand everything that's going on and all the information that they're getting. Then in October of every year, we have Halloween weekend, which is a really fun event where all of the inbounds get together, they carve pumpkins, they go on a hike, they have a costume party in the evening. It's very fun, and Rotex really helps to supervise. We help them to carve pumpkins because many of them have never done it before, and really supervising them and making sure everyone's in the right place, but also checking in with students and seeing how they're doing, because the fall can be a rougher time for students because they're not quite adjusted, they don't quite speak the language yet, and so Rotex are able to offer support and really advice about how to approach the next coming months of their exchange year. Then in December of every year, we have candidate interviews and the country fair. So students that have applied, they'll be interviewed and they go through what we call the country fair. So you can think of it as sort of a science fair setup, but for countries. So each student has a country or a board for their country, and they promote it to students. They say, you should go to Finland because we have so many lakes, it's so beautiful, or you should go to Argentina, it's not cold there like it is here in Minnesota, and so on and so forth. And so we help to manage the flow of people because there are a lot of people attending this event, but also making sure the inbounds know what they're doing and helping them set up their boards. And then, of course, we typically hold the Inbound Farewell Weekend in June of every year, where we get the inbounds together for one last sort of hurrah, one last chance to see each other, but also reflect on their exchange year, talk about reverse culture shock, and talk about what it will be like to go back to their home countries. Then we have service with candidates, which these are the students that have been selected and are about to go overseas for a year. In the spring, they have 3 candidate orientations, and Rotex really helped to facilitate these. So we run different sessions. On the right, you can see a picture of us with our pool noodle, which is how we demonstrate culture shock, the ups and downs of culture shock. We talk about what it'll be like to return to high school when you come back from abroad, or things you should prepare, or give them specific language learning resources. And Rotex are really great because we've been there, we've done it, and we've done it recently. So we're able to provide firsthand experience and firsthand knowledge to these students so that they're prepared to go abroad. Then we have our rebounds, which are the students that have recently returned from their years abroad. In August of every year, we hold Rebound Weekend, which is an opportunity for these students to get together again, meet people that have had similar experiences overseas, and really reflect on their exchange year and how has it changed them, and how what have they learned from their experience abroad. And we'll hold different sessions, such as how to return to high school, how to go off to college or off to work, and what it'll be like to live with your parents again and have to deal with all their rules, and so on and so forth. So a really big focus of Rebound Weekend is reverse culture shock, and teaching these students how you will still face ups and downs, and it might be even harder than initial culture shock, and providing them resources to support them during this upcoming Rebound year. So now that I've talked about how we are a service organization and all the service we do with inbounds, candidates, and rebounds, I want to talk about how we are a community. So one of the things that I think makes Rotex different compared to other organizations within Rotary is we have the shared experience. We've all gone overseas. We know what it's like to have to struggle with the language, to struggle to make friends, but also we know what it's like to feel comfortable overseas, to have built a life for yourself in a whole year on your own. And we really understand each other because of that. Even if one of us went to Taiwan, the other one went to Norway, we can still bond over that shared experience. And because of that, we're a support system. We can empathize with each other and the struggles of really finding your identity after you come back from exchange and who you are. So we're really a strong community that understands each other and really can support each other after our exchange years. And we keep this community alive by holding different social events throughout the year, whether that's swimming, whether that's bowling. And twice a year, we hold the Rotex All Ages Get Together, which is an opportunity for, as you can guess, Rotex of all ages to get together. And that picture there, you can actually see my mom and my dad both in that on the right there. And this is a photo from last August, and we had about 40 people attend. So you can really see how many people have been involved in Rotex and how widespreading our organization goes. I have been involved in Rotex ever since 2016 after my exchange year, and I've really enjoyed just all aspects of it. Mentoring outbound or candidate students, helping them to prepare, giving them language resources, cultural resources, and supporting them during their year abroad, supporting the inbounds that come here, being able to connect with them about Finland, and provide them resources again to enjoy their exchange year here in Minnesota or Wisconsin, but also being part of the Rotex community and supporting each other and helping Rotex to grow both here in North Star, but also in North America and around the world. So now that we've talked about Rotary Youth Exchange, we've talked about North Star Rotex, I want to look at Rotex in the bigger picture of Rotex International. So like Rotary has Rotary International, Rotex has Rotex International, which although similar in name has only been around for maybe 5 years, maybe a little longer. It's not that old. It's a relatively new organization, but their job is to promote and connect Rotex internationally and support the development of new Rotex clubs, as they call them. And they've just recently developed a new website. They're still working on it a lot, but rotex.org, if you want to check that out and learn more about what they're doing, that would be a great resource to do that. One of the things that they started doing, they started in 2019, is Rotex Week. So they have a theme in May, and they say post pictures about these different themes, and then we'll repost them and show other people what Rotex around the world is doing. So in 2019, they had their first one, and they had themes such as inbound, outbound, rebound, Rotex Day, etc. And this photo actually is from our Rebound weekend, and I posted it to show we have our Rebounds right thank you notes, really to be grateful for their exchange year, and they reposted it, which is really great to show that here's an idea of something that Rotex here in Minnesota does, and perhaps you could integrate it into your own programs. And this photo on the right is from 2020, and 2 of our photos actually are included in this. You maybe can't see them, but it was very cool to see that what we're doing matters and other people can learn something from how we run things here. They also hold the Rotex International Convention, which was of course supposed to be held this year, but postponed to next year, and it will be held in Brazil, Curitiba, and know that Rotarians are also welcome to attend and can come to learn more about Rotex, and of course experience like the Brazilian culture, and yeah, it's a really great opportunity and something to possibly consider. So now I want to touch on Rotex and where it fits within the bigger picture of Rotary. So when I think about Rotary, I think about sort of this traditional path, I'll call it, of Rotary. So you have your Rotary for high school students, your Interact. You get students really involved in volunteering, involved with giving back to the community. And then you have Rotaract, which is sort of pre-Rotary, getting really involved in service again, but having more flexible meeting times just because of starting out in your career, figuring out what you're doing. And then of course we have Rotary, which you all know about, but this is sort of one path that I see with Rotary. You have your Interact, your Rotaract, and your Rotary. And I see youth exchange on a different path. So a student applies, they go on exchange, and then they come back and hopefully become involved in Rotex. And that's not to say, although these are on different paths, that's not to say these paths can't overlap. So Interact students could apply to go in youth exchange programs. Rotex could later become involved in Rotaract or involved in Rotary. But really my point with this slide is to say these are 2 different paths. Not all Rotex, not all former youth exchange students are going to become involved in Rotaract or going to become Rotarians. But I can definitely say, based on my own experiences, is that although Rotex may not all be in Rotary, Rotary has really taught us how to be of service and how to give back to the community. And likely we'll be doing that in some form or fashion. So while my mom is a St. Paul Rotarian and she was a youth exchange student in Sweden back when she was in high school, My dad was also a youth exchange student in Argentina, and he's not really involved in Rotary, but he's very involved in Boy Scouts, and that's how he gives back to the community. So that's really just what I'm saying with this slide. How can Rotarians support us? Well, of course, support the youth exchange program here in North Star, support our candidates, support our inbounds, whether that's hosting a student through your club, whether that's recruiting students, really spreading the word about the program is so critical, especially right now. But supporting the program in whatever way you can is very important. Secondly, understand what Rotex is and spread the word. I'm sure a few of you didn't even know what Rotex is before you came into this presentation, and now you know. So if anyone, another Rotarian or someone you know doesn't know what it is, you can say, hey, I heard this great presentation recently. Let me tell you about Rotex and what they do. So really spread the word, because not many people know about who we are or what we do. And lastly, connect with and get to know us. I think, of course, I'm biased, but we're a really great group of people. We speak different languages. We know how to deal with intercultural communication. We're really, really great people, and but we're young, so we're still figuring out our path. We're trying to find the connections, to find that internship, to find that job. And I think Rotarians can help us with that. You guys have the connections, but you also have the knowledge and expertise. So if for example, I'm a supply chain major and I want to learn more about it, perhaps connecting with a Rotarian who could provide me with opportunities, or also just mentorship and advice. In the fall, we had the Rotary Mentor Meetup, which some Rotex were there, some Rotaractors and Rotarians. And I think that was a really great opportunity to really connect and really have that mentorship for Rotex. So get to know us. We're a really great group of people. And just a couple of COVID-19 updates. So at this point, it is July, of course, so many of our students have returned home as per usual for a normal year. But as of March, about half of our inbounds had returned to their home countries, and most of our outbounds had returned home. But some inbound students are still here. We're taking care of them though, making sure they're doing all right, especially because not all of them can return home. For example, Argentina, you can't have an international flight until September, but we are making sure that they have the resources they need and host families and all of that. Unfortunately, we can't hold Rebound Weekend in person this year, so we'll be holding it online. We'll be doing a virtual Rebound Day on August 8th. For short term, those were canceled quite a while ago, but they are still starting to connect families for the short term program, and hopefully starting to connect them virtually so that they can go and meet each other next summer. Long term programs, it was decided there will be none for this calendar year. North Star decided in about May, and then Rotary International also said, no, you have to wait until January to have any long-term programs. So we'll see if there's any potential with that as of January. But although this year is not a normal exchange year, we are still planning to recruit and have the 2021-2022 academic year as normal. So please spread the word about the program and encourage students to apply this fall. In terms of Rotex, really this is a difficult time for many, and we need to support each other and making sure we feel really keep that community alive. This spring, some students, some Rotex were studying overseas and they had to come home early as well. So supporting them and how they had to reacclimate to life here. A big project of ours has been supporting our Rebound students, the students that had to come home early as of March, for example. We've held about 4 different Zoom meetings with them, just giving them an opportunity to talk with us, share their experiences, and know that we're here to support them. This year, we'll have to come up with new ways to keep Rotex engaged, as we won't have all of our normal events. But we also see this as a time to evolve and improve ourselves because we have more time to work on seeing the bigger picture of what we should be doing and working on. So some things we've been doing this year, we added a social media officer position, which Julia Larson, who is a social media officer, is on this call. So we can introduce her after I'm finished with this. But we added a new social media officer position because we realized we needed more of that. We needed to do more promotion, but also different communication with our Rotex and Rebounds. Country-specific resource guide is something I helped put together. It's about a 40-page document with resources specific to a country. So if a student is going on exchange to Japan, they can get language learning resources. They can see what's here in Minnesota that's Japanese related to prepare for an exchange year, but also for rebounds to come back and keep that culture and keep that exchange experience alive. And lastly, Rotex, North Star Rotex is officially turning 50 years old next year, which is a very big accomplishment, as most Rotex clubs are maybe 10, 20 years old, if even that. So it's a very big accomplishment. And I'm hoping to collect different photos throughout the years to really, from the past 50 years, to showcase Rotex, who they are, what they've done, and really just show the depth of our organization. So now that you've heard this presentation and you want to stay up to date, we do have an Instagram account. There is a North Star Rotary Youth Exchange Facebook page that you can check out there. We just created a LinkedIn if you want to go check us out on there too. So lots of different ways to stay up to date on what we're doing. And I want to end my presentation with this quote. Perhaps some of you have heard it before, but it is from a former Rotary International president who said that, "My dream is for every 17-year-old to become a youth exchange student. If we could achieve this, there would be no more wars." And I agree with that statement. I think the youth exchange program teaches us so much about other cultures. It teaches students how to empathize with other cultures, understand them, and really it develops these students to be just great global citizens, right? And I think Rotex really builds on this. So we take these students who've learned so much from their year and we develop them even further. We teach them communication skills. They learn how to be leaders and lead a group of 50 inbounds on a hike. I mean, they learn so much and can even develop further and become the future leaders of future global leaders, really, to help support intercultural understanding and peace around the world, which is a big mission of Rotary. And with that, I will take any questions you have.
Thank you, Emma. Well done. And I was going to comment with, you already said it, but you know, the youth exchange, you're really the ambassadors, you're really in the forefront of world peace and making the world a little bit smaller. One of the programs Rotary used to have that I personally really miss is group study exchange, where we would send a group of non-Rotarians over for a month-long cultural and vocational exchange in a foreign country, and then bring a similar group over and host them. And it was a great way to shrink the world, and that has kind of gone away with what we need to do with the foundation and being more sustainably focused, and we're doing great work there. But what I love about youth exchange is we still get that piece of that international coming into our clubs, coming into our homes, and experiencing that and getting to learn more about other countries. So thank you so much for your service and Rotex and the great job you guys do. We've got a couple of questions here. One is, what's the age limit on, or age requirements for being part, like the short term and the long term?
Yeah, so it'd be a high school student. It could be for the short term. I think you could do it after freshman year of high school even. But for long term, you do it your sophomore to a gap year, but you apply the year before. So if you want to go for a sophomore year, you have to apply as a freshman in high school, but it's for, yeah, high school students. So
a little bit older, kind of past those middle school years where everything's going crazy. My daughter, that segment, and I think you should get combat pay for what they're going through there. The kids just, you know, the hormones kicking in, it's crazy. We have a question from Jorge down in Ecuador, he's part of Rotex. His exchange year was in Lesueur. So Betty Jo, you might remember him if you were around when he was here. He says, so grateful for the experience with the North Star community, looking forward to coming back and visiting. He recommends 100% doing exchange. It's an exchange year, the best experience ever, and he's proud to be part of Rotex. And his question is, what can we do as Rotex to collaborate with Rotary International in the ongoing projects that they have?
So I definitely say that is kind of where Rotex International fits in the picture. So they're really that liaison between Rotary International and Rotex around the world. So I know they're working on a variety of different projects. I don't know exactly everything that they're doing, but that's really the group of people that would be the best to connect with Rotary International.
That's where to plug in. Okay, thank you. And how do exchange students get prepped for, shielded from, counseled in the event of negative experiences?
Yeah, so obviously, of course, this year was nuts and there were negative experiences around COVID. But one of the things we really focus on in our, I think maybe it's the first orientation even for outbound for candidate students, is we teach them about resilience. So how to keep yourself, of course, healthy and well so that you're able to deal with the difficult times, because of course you don't have necessarily your normal support network while you're abroad, but also of course relying on your support network there, whether it's talking to your club counselor, your youth exchange officer, about your concerns, and getting support from people, really not just going it alone, because there is such a big expansive network that Rotary has. But we really teach them about, yeah, resilience is a big one, but relying on your Rotary network. Of course, we can't stop all negative experiences, we can't prevent an earthquake, but we give them the skills to how to deal with that effectively and make it through the difficult times.
Thank you, Emma. I'm reminded of our district governor nominee, Dale Quigley, shared the experience of her children being on exchange. I think it was before she got involved with Rotary, and that was, I think, kind of the tipping point for her. Was, I think she got to go over and visit or something, but at any rate, she was so impressed that there were people out there that could love and care for her children as much as she did. And, you know, sorry, it still chokes me up when you think about that. I mean, what Rotary clubs are capable of. I think George has got a question here.
I do, and this is a very difficult subject. We've got countries that are very adversarial: North Korea, Venezuela, countries like this that are very difficult to have any negotiations with. Is there any way that Rotary can enter into it? We can't put people at risk, I understand that. But is there any way to get that message out somehow to these countries to try to plant the seed because if we don't get those countries in a more reasonable or friendly, or whatever you want to call it, relationship with the rest of the world, we're never going to solve this problem that we've got internationally. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a couple comments. So one, of course, with Youth Exchange, there is a list of approved and non-approved districts. And so we do exchange with only those that are approved. So of course, we're not going to send anyone into the middle of some conflict or something. So with Rotary, really focus on, of course, areas that are safe for our students and that they can have a good exchange experience. But in terms of the bigger picture of connecting with those countries, I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert, but I think even if it's difficult to talk with those countries, it's also important we don't forget about the rest of the world too. And I think that's where Youth Exchange can help. That, yeah, maybe we're very peaceful with the Finnish people, but we still need to understand them. We still need to increase that international cooperation, because by uniting together, then perhaps we can work with those more difficult countries that we have issues with. Because really, with what my exchange has taught me is that cooperation, international understanding is so important. And if you can get 10 other countries on board with the US to work on something more difficult, that'll give you much more sort of different ideas and a better, hopefully, chance of making a difference.
What about this thought? Supposing we've got all of these Facebooks and all these kinds of things, I'm sure that there's a lot of people in those countries that have access to that kind of thing. Could we promote what Rotary has been doing, what you folks are doing to these people in that country, plant the seeds so they're aware? They may not even have a Rotary club in the country, but make them aware of what Rotary is doing, the polio project, all the things that we're doing as Rotarians, and plant those seeds in those countries that are not friendly to the rest of the world. And maybe that would be a way to grow some influence. I don't know, but something like that is worth thinking about. Because when you've got countries like North Korea that have the atom bomb, and other countries, we had a conference about a month or so ago, 2 months ago, that Paul Perez and Kathy put together, that talked about the two highest risks for the world are the environment and nuclear war. Okay, so something along those lines, I think is worth giving some thought to. Thank you for listening. Yeah.
I think we are doing that, George. I mean,
Are we? I didn't know that.
we've got social media out there, and anyone can jump in. And the way Rotary works is really connecting with other people. It's with other clubs and other countries through youth exchange. You know, the Rotary action groups
are we effective with North Korea, for example, or Venezuela?
Well, you know, you can only do so much, and if a country is shutting itself off, you know, we can't really force it. I'm reminded of the joke about how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb?
Yeah.
Just one, but the light bulb has to really want to change, you know, and so you can only do so much. And we keep chipping away at it. We role model it with Emma and Julia and Jorge, you know, are excellent examples of that, of just really promoting peace. And that's what we can do.
If we were just to let people know in those countries, the people that are rank and file people, let them know what other countries are doing. It may, you know, through our cell phones, our media, computers, some of those folks have those things, because this is a major problem right now, that we have those kinds of countries with the kinds of weapons that they've got. And I know that there's a lot of problems with it, but if we could just get that message, it just out there, drop no, you know, years ago they used to drop leaflets on countries. So we got much more ways to doing that today.
Okay, thanks, George. I think Julia.
I talk too much, I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Julia, do you have something to say? I saw your hand. Unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah, so, I mean, you were talking about countries that have had difficult relations, especially within the sphere of US politics. In past years, we've had exchanges with Russia, and I think from that you know, little just situation, we can learn a lot about how we have our youth exchange in a way that we can balance that with politics. That we're trying to maintain relationships with Rotary programs that are in those countries, but for the last year we didn't have an exchange there because tensions are so high, and to be an American student in Russia would have brought on a series of just problems that we don't want to put anyone through. And then also I think the problem with us saying if we have it out and build it and they will come, for having Rotary for these countries that have limited accessibility to outside sources like North Korea, where a lot of what is going through that country is being government mandated and government survey and just a uptick of government surveillance. It's just we can try our hardest to try to make sure that our message goes through there, but I don't know, we can't really.
We are trying. Well, that's good. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really the job of the diplomat. So as these young adults go through the youth exchange and stuff, and we get them into the Peace Scholar program and that sort of thing, they can go off, become the diplomats that can change the world. So we're all working towards the same goal of world peace. Another question here is, any outreach being done to Native Americans, African Americans within the community? I think we try to get information out about becoming a Rotary Exchange student out to communities, but any thoughts on that, Emma or Julia?
Yeah, so I can talk about St. Paul actually, because I'm in St. Paul and we have a very diverse population here. And I think we were planning, I know they were having the Rondo Days event or something, and I know Rotary was actually planning on going there and talking to students about youth exchange, because we really do want to get a diverse representation of Minnesota and of Wisconsin when we send these students abroad. So we have been doing some work with that. With Native Americans, I don't have any specific knowledge of what different clubs are doing, because I don't know exactly, but I think we should, if we aren't, is really getting those diverse communities, because like I said, we want our students to represent the United States and the different experiences that we have here.
Thank you.
Or
Any
Julia,
other-
do you want to add something? Because
Yeah.
you're in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so I'm from Minneapolis. I went to Washburn High School, and for the past year, I've been helping out with the different Minneapolis Rotary clubs with trying to do some more outreach to our public schools, because a lot of times Rotary seems like it's kind of a word of mouth organization. And so making sure that we get new people into the program and just repeating to younger kids' heads that this is a viable option and that it is, affordable and will not really have it won't have drastic implications on your academic career. And that it's feasible. You can do this. And that's something that a lot of people just need to be able to hear.
I know St. Paul is looking at potentially creating a scholarship for low-income students, because we've had students, we've had a couple of Hmong students that have come to us and said, I want to do this, but I have like $1,000 and I can't afford it. So how do I fundraise? And that's been a big thing with St. Paul, is supporting these Hmong students and getting them, these low-income students, and getting them the opportunity to go overseas, because they have really, really transformative experiences and they really make an impact overseas.
And Emma, I'll tag on to what you just said. I know the North Star Youth Exchange is in the process of becoming from a C4 to a C3 501c3 organization as far as the IRS is concerned, which means they're going to be able to accept tax deductible donations. And what they want to do is create a scholarship fund as well to help underwrite some students who may not have quite all the means to be able to make the trip, and give more people the opportunity to experience this. Because it is life-changing. You were talking about coming back, and I'm not the same person. I'm always reminded of a Pendleton blanket out of Pendleton, Oregon, these thick blankets that were part of the Native American trade thing way back. And I own one, and I came out of the box, and no matter how you fold it, you cannot get it back into that box. It's just impossible. And I think that's the same experience you go through. You grow, and you've grown out of your box, and you come back, you've got to find a different place where you fit into the world.
Exactly. I think that is a really good analogy to describe it. You don't fit in the same box anymore, and you have to find your new box.
Yeah. Michael, did you have something you wanted to unmute?
Okay, I'm unmuted. So if I were a 16-year-old and already dealing with all the complications of just being a high school freshman or sophomore, and I were approached about this, and I felt like I had to be fluent in Finnish or Russian or even French, a year from now, that might dissuade me from even considering the idea. How do you overcome that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we tell students you don't need to be fluent in a language. And really, our program is a cultural exchange. So you're there to learn about another culture. It's not super educational. It's not like you have to take certain classes or do certain things. You still have to go to school, of course, but it is a cultural exchange, and it's really there to learn about another culture, and language comes with that. But being also immersed in it, that's really how that you really learn that. But in terms of, we talk about a lot of different things with students, and really it's having these one-on-one conversations, having like little info sessions, and saying, like, one big concern we get from students is, oh, I can't get credit for it, so I'll just wait to do a gap year. And no, you can actually get credit for it. I had my whole junior year, I got credit completely for everything. I had to, pay attention to what classes I was taking so I could fulfill my science and my math and my English requirements. But I got full credit for my junior year. And I talked to my counselor about it ahead of time to get that done. So we tell students that that's a possibility. Students also say, well, but I don't want to miss out a year of soccer or a year of hockey or some other sport I'm participating in. And we say, you can do that overseas. Like, I played hockey when I was overseas. I played hockey for a whole year while I was there. And then I came back and I played hockey. So we talk about that. But really just saying that, yeah, you might miss out on prom, your junior prom, or you might miss this one thing, but the experiences you'll gain from an exchange year are so much greater than missing one event at high school. Yeah, high school is important, and it's important to go to these things, but this experience is so much greater, and you'll learn so much from it. So if that helps answer your question.
And Michael, North Star Youth Exchange, as the young adults are being prepped for their getting ready for their outbound experience, there are language helps and tapes, and so they get some rudimentary thing, and they're asked to practice a short speech. You know, this is who I am, this is who I live with, these are my brothers and sisters, just kind of the normal questions people are going to ask you when they first meet you. Do you have any, you know, do you have any brothers and sisters? What's your family like? And so they are kind of prepped to sort of prepare that to get them going, but the rest of it comes just being immersed. And it's really the way to learn a language, is to immerse yourself, not only the language, but the culture. So
I can just imagine arriving in, you know, the only words I know are "Donde está el baño," you know, and having to go from there.
No, it's challenging. I mean, especially like, and I think nowadays people are using English more as a crutch of welcoming him in. Like in Finland, everyone speaks English. So at first it was just English, English, English. And I could have gotten by with that, but I was like, no, I'm here to learn Finnish. Let's do it. And so, yeah, it's really hard when you're sitting in class all day and it's so boring because you don't understand what's happening. You understand them like, oh, they said and, oh, they said one. Okay, that's all you get. And you're so tired. You're exhausted. But then you get to that point. I know in January, I was sitting in class and I just remember thinking like, I understand this. Like, I know what's going on. So it's very much a struggle. But we give them, like I said, with resiliency, we give them resources. We tell them to learn as much as possible. And they never learn enough, and then they regret it. But that's part of the experience too. But yeah.
when did you start reading in Finnish?
I think March. Well, like I started online really, but then the University of Minnesota teaches Finnish, so we arranged for we paid the Finnish teaching assistant at the U of M to tutor me in Finnish, and so I would do that like twice a week, and I knew more than most people, but I didn't know a lot, and Finnish is completely different, but I had good pronunciation, so that was pretty much, that helped me get through. But I had to study. You had to study. I had to sit down and study it while I was there to learn it.
Okay. Anybody else? Any last questions, thoughts, comments?
Just a comment. There are courses you can take. I'm sure you know about it, to learn another language. I don't know how effective they are. I've never tried it, but that might be a help also.
Oh, definitely. We give students a lot of different resources. Like I have a list of online Finnish courses for free that students can take to really learn as much as they can before they go abroad. Definitely.
Sure.
Well, thank you, Emma and Julia, for a most enlightening overview of Rotex. Keep up the great work. Look forward to working with Sage this next year as we look at the Conference of Clubs. We'll try to have some zoomed in folks from around the world. We'll have to watch time zones probably.
Definitely.
Don't want people up in the middle of the night, you know. People need their sleep. But thank you all for being here. We'll throw it back over to past District Governor Paul.
Thank you. And let's give Emma another hand. Great job. This is the second time I heard this, and you're getting much better, Emma. So if you want Emma to come and present to your club, if you're thinking about youth exchange or want to know more about that or Rotex, I encourage you to reach out to Emma. Thank you, Ed, for facilitating. Great job as always. And I want to invite everyone back next week. So this week we talked about youth exchange. We talked about Rotex, so some of the programs related to Rotary. We have another one, and that's former Rotary Peace Fellow, Raina Fox. She was sponsored by our district, and there's a new role in Rotary, and it's called Positive Peace Activator, and Raina was selected for this role. So it's very timely, as always, with peace. And so she'll tell you more about her journey and you know how passionate she is about Rotary and continuing her path. And she'll talk to you about this new role that is being rolled out. So it's very new, just in the last several months. So have a great weekend and hope to see you next Friday.